Hi, everybody. Welcome to Why You Need to Focus on Software Spending Now, a tale from a startup. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Paris, and I appreciate that you're spending some time with me today to talk about the importance of managing software spending. I'm currently the Director of Business Technology and Business Intelligence at People AI, a San Francisco-based tech startup. I've specialized in building best-in-class portfolios of integrated business systems and teams supporting pretty much every internal business function, including finance and accounting, HR, sales, marketing, services, and support. In recent years, I focused on scaling business technology at growth stage startups. And just as a reminder, if you want to make the slides appear larger on the screen than my face, double-click on the pane where you see this slide deck. First, a little bit about my company. People AI is a B2B SaaS startup that's built an AI platform driving increased sales and marketing effectiveness with personalized, actionable insights that help you create more pipeline and close deals faster. We automate the capture of business activity across your go-to-market teams and load it into your systems, such as Salesforce, using intelligent, patented matching technology. We also use that data to power People AI's Sales Management Console, a powerful tool for sales leaders to get a bird's eye view of what's going on with their reps so they can provide effective coaching, something even more important in these days of working remotely. We are headquartered in the Soma district of downtown San Francisco with an engineering center in Kiev, Ukraine, and several satellite offices here across the US. I'm going to share a brief story about our journey to getting software spending under control. We were very fortunate to have started this work prior to COVID-19, and we launched our program on March 3rd, just weeks before the shelter in place. In subsequent months, when we've needed to take a closer look at our business in this new environment, we had a great head start in understanding our software costs and had already put in actions in place to realize savings. This story about a startup taking its very first steps in implementing software governance may resonate more closely with those of you working at companies of similar size and stage, but the fundamentals here are universal. So I started my role at People AI in spring of 2019. And on day one, I was introduced to all of the awesome SaaS applications and tools that were available to new employees. And since one of my responsibilities was to manage all of this business technology, I was eager to see what was already in place across all of our departments and how this portfolio aligned with our current and future business needs. Well, I couldn't keep up. Everywhere I turned, I found another system or tool that presumably somebody was using for something and had acquired somehow and was hopefully set up properly and maybe was integrated with other systems and maybe there had been training. To say that we had an abundance of software for the size and nature of our business was an understatement. So I started asking around, how did we get here? Do we really need all of this? Who bought these tools? Who manages them? I got some sighs, some shrugs, and a few eye rolls. But to most, it seemed normal. I mean, we had just closed a strong Series C, and our 160 employees were laser focused on continuing to build our product and taking it to market. Fortunately, I found a few folks that shared my concerns. We got ourselves an executive sponsor who was our COO, who became our super champion, and we embarked on a mission to launch our software governance program. A key objective of this program was cost savings, and it was important from the start that everyone see the full cost picture. Folks tended to focus on our license or subscription costs, but as we all know, the total cost of software ownership includes many other internal and external costs. We realized that our accounting records were underreporting the total cost of our software due to a lack of purchasing governance. Many subscriptions were miscategorized as services, and it was particularly difficult to track down items that were purchased via credit card. Well, I'd been down this road a few times before, so I had learned some of the best practices in making a governance program successful at this stage. driving a sense of ownership across the company, positioning the governance program as a value-added service, and prioritizing keeping the program lightweight and agile. We wanted to get something up and running quickly that would serve as a strong foundation we could build upon as we grow. We defined a mission that was focused on 3 key areas. 1, making sure we had all the software that best aligned with the needs of the business. 2, validating that all of the applications and tools were fully compliant with our strict security and privacy requirements. 3, making sure that we drove consistency across the tech stack, such as with authentication and integrations. We spent about 1 month developing the framework for our program, and when we were ready to roll it out, we knew that we had to find a way to get people's attention, to get them to care about it, and to embrace their role in its success. So it was early March, and I got 15-minute slot on our all hands with an intentionally vague description of what I was going to talk about. The agenda just said Greg's topic. I had immediately created a little bit of mystery and buzz. After all, anyone who saw software governance on the agenda was most likely going to have something more important suddenly come up, like washing out the coffee mug. Well, I had all the details ready to share about the components of our software governance program and how it would work. But I would first needed to get their attention. I needed them to care. So I stood up in front of the all hands and I announced, we're going to play a game. Better yet, a numbers game, because of course, who doesn't love numbers? I put a number on the screen, 160. And I asked the audience, well, what does this number represent here at People AI? Quickly, they shouted the obvious answer. It's the number of employees, feeling that this was going to be an easy game and they were already winning. I said, well, you get 50% credit for that answer. 160 has another meaning as well. It represents the number of different pieces of SaaS software we're currently using internally. Well, I could see a few jaws drop, and I might have heard 1 or 2 hit the floor. I continued with a few more slides. People thought this one represented how much we spent on software. I said, no, it represents what we planned to spend on software last year. And remember, we're a startup, and for us, this is a big number. This is what we actually spent. When I asked about this number, the room full of math whizzes was quickly able to identify it as our overspending. But I wanted to make this number really mean something. So I pointed to the VP of engineering and I asked him, how many additional engineers could we hire for this amount? I looked over at our sales team and I asked, how many deals did we have to close just to cover this overspending? Finally, I said, imagine adding this to our employee bonus pool. That comes out to about $4,000 for each of you here. So the group was leaning in and very interested to hear where this was all going. I indicated that, like lots of startups, we had been binging on software without any controls, and therefore we now have an expensive and messy situation on our hands. We had multiple tools for the same thing, such as project management software. Many of the tools were not taking advantage of available integrations. Some looked like nobody was using them. For others, we didn't know who bought it or why or who was managing it. We realized we were likely paying too much and felt there was probably more software lurking in the shadows we had still yet to discover. So we had a problem. But why did we need to pay attention to it now? I said that as we mature as a company, it's important that we demonstrate to our investors responsibility in managing our costs, that we meet all the requirements by our customers and partners for a secure and compliant infrastructure, and that we make sure we have the best fit of systems and tools to meet the business needs that will not cause issues as we scale. I emphasized how important it was to start thinking and behaving like the successful big company that we want to be. We owe that to ourselves, our investors, and our future. I'd made my case, reeled in my audience, and was ready to launch the program. I announced the launch of our software governance program. And at the center of this program was a newly formed software advisory board made up of 3 key people responsible for delivering a set of services. Each of us had a specific focus and expertise: security, privacy, and compliance, technology fit and licensing, and business functionality, fit, and value. The program itself was built as a set of core services designed to support our mission to make sound business decisions around software purchases and drive ongoing alignment of our software portfolio with our evolving business needs. Our three services were purchasing, software inventory management, and ongoing software rationalization. Our purchasing process applies to bringing in new software, adding licenses, and renewals. It places the responsibility in the hands of the business team to develop a strong, solid business case, and the software advisory board assists them in that process. For many, it's the first time they were ever required to perform this kind of task. We provided simple templated forms to guide them through the process. The requester and the board conduct a review meeting with a well-defined structure and agenda to review the request and make sure there's adequate understanding of the business need, technology, and security, and ownership of implementation and enablement. The process is intentionally designed to help the business team think through all the costs and implications of the purchase. The board ultimately makes a recommendation that goes to the executive sponsor for final approval. Having a detailed and well-maintained inventory of all SaaS software is critical to the program. And while there are many different tools out there you can use to manage your SaaS portfolio, we opted for the simple spreadsheet. It meets all of our needs now, and perhaps as we scale, we'll consider more advanced tools. But sometimes simple is the best fit. We were able to crowdsource a comprehensive inventory of all of our software with the help of IT, engineering, finance, and operations. We built renewal reminder triggers and the ability to track the status of our cost-saving actions. And finance started to use it as the basis for their accounting, forecasting, and payment validation. The third component of our program is a semi-annual software rationalization process, where we review everything in our inventory to identify opportunities for cost savings in the form of tool consolidation, right-sizing, or removal. This is a very collaborative process between the software advisory board and the business teams. I'll walk through more details on this process in a few moments. To make sure the process was clearly understood, we created a portal on our company wiki with all of our process documents, templates, and visibility into our inventory list. We also implemented a monthly cadence to review these documents and verify that they were kept up to date. In designing the governance program, we were very mindful of keeping it simple and lightweight, yet effective. However, I anticipated some skepticism around introducing this level of process at our stage as a startup. So to get ahead of that, we piloted the software procurement process with 3 actual cases prior to the launch. This helped us to test and fine-tune the process, but most importantly, it gave me strong testimonials to bring to the launch. While only 2 of the 3 requested purchases were approved, in all cases, the requesters felt the process was helpful, faster, and led to making the best business decisions in a fair and well-informed way. Anticipating objections and being proactive in addressing them is key to getting buy-in. Immediately after the program launch, we set out on our first round of software rationalization. Like the purchasing process, we wanted this to be straightforward, focused, repeatable, and most importantly, collaborative. We started with our inventory master and assigned each software item to a department and a business owner. We then conducted a discovery session with each business owner where we walked through all of their software and categorized both current utilization and business priority level. From this, we determined what to keep, which things required a deeper dive assessment, and many opportunities for right-sizing, contract renegotiation, or removal. We brought our recommendations forward to the executive sponsor and business teams and put plans in place to track next steps and implement the necessary changes. One of the key factors to the success of this process was to provide very specific guidance on how to categorize various software applications to accurately reflect value to the business. Everyone's going to think that all their systems and tools are super important and they can't survive without them. So these specific examples help to make those decisions much more objective. Being very precise around these business need categories enabled us to have well-informed and an honest understanding of the role that each piece of software played driving business value. After all discovery meetings were completed, we saw that 15% of software was rarely or never used, and 25% of it was considered just nice to have. Only 36% met the specific criteria of mission critical. This resulted in a recommendation to remove 19% of our software and to perform more detailed analysis on another 10% over the next several months. We also came away with a much clearer understanding of our software costs across the various business departments. At the end of this first round of software rationalization, we saw both financial and non-financial benefits. We identified $400,000 of annual cost savings due to canceling software that was unused or nice to have, renegotiation of contracts, both pricing and quantities, for over 20 subscriptions. And this doesn't include the items that we identified as requiring a deeper dive assessment. But just as important, our business teams walked away with a clearer understanding of their software costs, empowering them with a sense of control and ownership of their departmental financial management. Confidence that they had and would continue to have an effective and powerful tech stack with identified ownership around administration, support, and enablement. And the peace of mind that comes from having strong collaborative partnerships with business technology, IT, security, and finance. Reflecting back on this journey over the past several months, I recognize that while this first venture into introducing governance to manage costs at a startup may be relatively simplistic, the impact to the organization extended beyond just the cost savings achieved. We paved the way for further implementation of cost management governance by showing that it's never too early to take this on. The earlier you build a foundation, the easier it will be to evolve and grow. We learned how important it is to get everybody in the company to feel a sense of ownership in the process. Communicate the benefits in a way that it resonates with business teams. Build your brand as a business partner that exists not to block or slow things down, but to reduce friction through repeatable playbooks designed to evolve over time and best align with the company's strategic objectives. And finally, introducing this program at this stage was about more than cutting costs. It was about building the muscle necessary to scale. It was about starting to seed the behaviors now, such as effective governance programs, that are vital for any company to not just weather the unexpected storms of economic downturn, but to thrive. So thanks very much for your attention. I'm going to turn it over now to Chris, who will be discussing cost management related to staffing. And then both of us will be back at the end for our Q&A.
I mean, that's perfect timing. Right on the good job, Craig. Let me share my screen here. Can you confirm that you can see that, Greg?
See it.
Perfect. So hello, everybody. My name is Chris Blazier. I'm the Director of Support Operations at Elastic. And to give you a little bit about a little background on myself, I really started my career in the IT audit and worked there for a number of years, really starting to understand distributed national public companies, and really spent a long time there before I realized that nobody really likes auditors as they're looking across the table, and decided that that wasn't going to be a long-term play for me. So I ended up, I really found passion in really the ERP space and what we were doing in the audit world there, but really moving more to a consulting side, and had a few stops as business system director before I took a job to run kind of corporate IT business systems at Elastic in 2017. I was in that role for a while and grew the team significantly, added a PMO group, added a compliance member as well to really focus on compliance as we went through the IPO. About a year ago, I transferred over to the support team, where we really are a business systems team in ourselves, and with a large focus on rebuilding a customized support portal, which is really a passion of mine at this point. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to lean towards the business systems for support. However, it's also the same procedures that end up working at the corporate level as well. So if you don't know about us, Elastic, we are essentially a search company, and we develop tools for developers to add search to their apps or their websites. And we do offer an open source and a paid product. And so many of you that don't know us do know the applications that are used. So Uber is a big user of us. So if you search for an Uber cab, Elastic is the technology that returns the closest Uber. If you used Yelp to find a restaurant with 4 stars, Elastic is the one that searched through to find the ratings and present you with a relevant restaurant to go to. So that's us in a nutshell. We IPO'd in 2018. We're roughly about 2,000 employees now. I included a link to what we call our source code, and every company has a missions value statement. So this is ours, and it's a really good look into who we are and the fact that this is slightly different. This source code is innately human. It's everything that you would want to see in there, written by the perspective of the employees. And so to learn more about us, that's a good place to start. So the title of this is Finding Cost Savings and Planning in this New Environment. What I really want to focus on is the planning part. Greg talked about a lot of ways to find cost savings in applications, and this is the other side of that coin. And not only is it just about planning, but it's also about people, and that's where the focus is, because ultimately the people, the software that we're doing is empowering people to do their job, and we want to continue to put these people in the position to be successful. So in this new environment, I really want to focus on 2 really macro pressures that are coming down on Fry here, the business system lead. And one of them is the leadership, everybody coming down from the top down or side, whichever way leadership is defined for you. And really, what is it going to take to facilitate business asks? And then the other one is really of the systems team that is either your team or very close stakeholders or project managers that you work with on a regular basis. How do we facilitate the ask to them and make sure we have a constant delivery process in this new environment because of some of the variables? So I want to focus on the headcount one first. And this is really when I think about headcount planning the first time I did this many years ago, it was a very linear process. So you would collect the asks from your team. You would say, you know, what is it that you think we need? We've got a couple asks of maybe small projects that we're working on. And we would try to convert those asks, whether it was converting to Lightning or installing a new project management software. All those things would be headcount, and we would come together with some magic spreadsheet. Maybe it included economic impact or not, but ultimately we requested it. Maybe after a little negotiation, eventually we got approval to go higher, and we executed against it. When I look at our process at Elastic, you have some of the core elements, but instead of that linear path, it takes a cycle here, and we do it twice a year, and we end up creating this feedback loop. And so one of the ones that we broaden the top of the funnel of the ask, and we say, hey, a business team, so even outside of our direct line, what is it in sales? What is it in CSM? What is it in HR? How can we facilitate these asks? What is it that you're looking for? From all of that, we can consolidate all of that into an ask for people and what projects we would fund or not fund. We request the headcount just like everybody else. And what we do is we make sure that the team that we got the input from originally is communicated to and said, hey, this is what was funded. These are the projects we're going to take on this year. There are some of these that we didn't get funded, and we're going to push those into next year or into another cycle. And being transparent in there and that open communication has led to a lot of further discussions and empathy for us in that situation. And so every time we go back through and we hear another thing that someone's looking for, I used Lightning as an example earlier. If we didn't fund Lightning and someone said, where's Lightning? We can, where's Lightning at in the roadmap? We can say, remember, we didn't fund this project, and it's going to be another 6 months before we look at it. So I think that open communication is really a strength for us. When we think about the most recent cycle, which happened about February, March timeframe, it was a much more intense in this way that we had this communication because of the external forces that were happening. We had 2 big things that everyone's really aware of. The COVID and the market impact that had on us really created these mini cycles and had so much more communication and honest communication about what does this mean at the top line, converting it down to our asks and the projects that we're going to fund. It also, all of the diversity stuff that was going on in the world as well, with George Floyd and everything that was around us, it felt like it was things that we had to talk about. We spent additional time thinking about diversity and what we're going to do as a response to it. And so when I kind of summarize over the headcount planning of this new environment that we're in, I think it's important for me to first point out that Elastic, we're in this fortunate situation that we didn't have a reduction in force. We had a very strong cash balance, and 50% of our company or greater than was already remote. And so it's not lost on me that a lot of people listening to this weren't in that situation. And so I wanted to say that up front. It makes it sound easier when I go through it. Those are hard discussions. I understand it. So what we did was we made sure that there was a conservative hiring plan. And we knew that there was some market uncertainty there. And therefore we couldn't hire to plan, understandable. We had more diversity discussions. That didn't mean we found a silver bullet. What it means is that we kept on continuing that conversation even after we submitted our final headcount. And what was it that the steps that we were going to take to make sure that diversity is always in the conversation moving forward. And then multiple channels. So before, when we sent an email, we might have a single meeting and make sure that we had a communication mechanism. This time we really over communicated. We had team meetings, we had a wiki posted regularly, we had even an AMA by our CEO. So it was important that this cycle really, we doubled down on the communication here so everybody was aware. And what we talked about really at the leadership side was what in the future, what's going to happen here. And so this is some of the stuff I want to take away from this conversation is that shelter in place will pass. We have plans about how we're going to open up offices. We have teams working on that, but we know there's going to be less capacity when they open. So the systems that we set up for remote work, and although we had many of them in place, maybe a few of them that we set up or that you set up, they're still going to be there after this. And I think it's important that if we put any Band-Aids in place, that we make sure that we really consider those as more longer-term solutions and not short-term solutions. And then also diversity. It is a large topic. And we made specific changes on the interview process and the recruiting to add more people of color in the interview process, as well as anybody reviewing candidates. We wanted to make sure that we had an influx of diversity conversations on the top. And I think those were very important to us to start small and continue evaluating as we go. And one of the things that I noticed in interviewing candidates, they are asking today about what we are doing about diversity. How do we track it? And it's very strong that I have a response that I can say, these are the specific actions that we're taking. And I think everybody listening here should have a response as well if a candidate asks you. If you don't have one, I think it's time to ask your management. Shifting gears to the delivery process, we talked about two macro pressures that we're under in this new environment. That was really the headcount planning one. This one, we're going to focus on the delivery and returning to giving back those asks that are coming down on us. And so I'll give you a little bit of context in the background of the majority of the team that I'm going to focus on here is software development. I know a lot of people listening have project managers, and they have security teams, and they had admins. We definitely lean harder towards the software development side. And it really starts with a capacity model. How much work can we do in a given period of time? And so in order to do that, we use a light agile. I assume everybody understands what I'm saying, but it's basically picking a period of time and scoping amount of work for each one of those sprints. We do it on a monthly basis, and we make sure that every week we're adding more either to our backlog or to our sprint or to our 90-day roadmap. And that's really what grooming is for us. And what we want to do is we want a goal of a 90-day roadmap. And what this says is we communicate that roadmap to people and say, these are the things that are going to be delivered over this period of time. Let's swap it out and make sure that we're hitting our goals appropriately. And then what we do is we do a monthly review of what we actually delivered. And I break these down into 3 reports. I think it's important for everybody to understand these reports to know which way we're going here. One of the reports is about the open issues and our backlog. So it's really trying to summarize how much work is coming into the group and how do we measure that. And then the second one is about closed issues. How much did we deliver during that month period, which is our sprint, and what team got the most benefit of it, and which one, and how is that distribution? And the third one is about what did we plan to deliver and what did we actually deliver. Like a lot of you, in every sprint, we have things that come in and things that get pushed out because we couldn't actually get it done or something came in on fire. And so we want to make sure we track those accordingly. And so what I want to share is some numbers here that I think will highlight what this new environment is today for us. And so on the left-hand side, you're going to see new and open issues. This is about stuff coming in. And we saw against our forecast, and let me preface this by saying, since then we've identified that our forecast was a little light. We've gotten a lot more mature in some of our systems, so we're getting more requests coming in for that. So there is a little bit of buffer there, but I wanted to show real numbers, so I didn't fake it. Ultimately, what you see here is that the red line below is new issues coming in. So while we saw a little dip in April and May, heading into June, we're already starting to pick back up, and we never really got to no issues, or we didn't slow down that far. And so what you see is that the in-pipe that we're getting in this inflow never really let off on us. And then conversely to that, when you see what is planned over the last 6 months, you can see the red line that I picked an arbitrary date. It's kind of hard to say when COVID started, but arbitrarily I picked when our California office went into mandatory shelter in place. And after that date, we were 31% less efficient at the work that we delivered. And so what that means is we planned to a certain number, and we just didn't deliver those items. And one of the things that I want to take away to this group when they look at this is that we were already 100% remote for these people. So think about that for a second. When we think about headcount planning that we talked about earlier, and we think about, well, if we move to a remote workforce, we can start to see some advantages there. We see some advantages, but what you see here is that we also were impacted by COVID, whether this is because a spouse or a significant other is living with you and you're both working from home, whether you had impact from kids or other family members, or just the mental health aspect of dealing with not being able to leave your house. And so this is a reflection of all of that. And we were able to normalize for the move actually to remote work. So I think this is something that you should take into consideration when you're planning. So kind of the response that we had when we saw these numbers and what we're really thinking about is that we want to set the expectation that family and mental health comes first. We supported that. We gave them, we shut it down. The entire company shut down for a few days a month, given some operations couldn't, but we made them right as we could. And then for each individual, we gave them time and said, hey, take some additional time when you feel you need it and go forward with no questions asked. It is here for you, and people are taking advantage of it. For chunkier items that we didn't deliver in the sprint, we directly told stakeholders, hey, this one's not going to happen. We hope it's going to land in a future sprint, but right now, this is what the 90-day plan looks like. They were all very open to that conversation. And it's partly because of the third bullet point here, which is our monthly communications went out to everybody who signed up for the distribution group that we use. And it says, hey, here is what's actually happening. They saw the same graphs that you saw. And so your request might be delayed when they come in for everything that we're seeing here. And that the backlog is growing. So all the items that we know we have, we know it's going to take even longer when we get new ones out of the backlog, and be patient with us as best we can. And that we're going to continue to focus on these priority items. We have a scoring system. A lot of the sessions you saw earlier about project scoring and building a roadmap, we kind of do that on enhancements and projects as well. So we're able to focus on those priority items. The next bullet point here that we did was really around executive discussions, my boss and their bosses, and understanding, hey, what is a healthy backlog for us? Because when a user comes to us and they say, hey, I need to make this change in entitlements of support within Salesforce, then we say, well, that's sitting right now behind 6 months of backlog, and is that an acceptable answer? And how do we start to deliver that message appropriately? Everything that we're able to forecast today is saying that our target of 6 months of backlog, which is my general barometer of a healthy backlog, it's now forecasting to double that by the end of the year. I think these are things that we really need to get ahead of, because it's going to come whether we like it or not. And then finally, what we're doing is decreasing our planned capacity for the new environment. And again, we didn't lose anybody. We didn't move from on-prem to remote. We just know we're going to have a reduced workload by everybody involved with everything. And we'll continue to evaluate it, and we will change if we need to, if we see the numbers change for us. So kind of the key takeaways that are throughout this entire presentation is that there's this common theme. We're all in this together. I heard some good conversations about, this is one of the few times, even since World War II, that the entire world is feeling the same problem that we have today, especially as it relates to COVID. And We can build empathy through these transparent communications, both when times are good and bad. So everybody wants to celebrate when we have a new release or a big project works out well. But when these things aren't working the way we want it to and they are less efficient, let's have those conversations. And I think it's easier for everybody to start understanding and move forward together. So specifically as it relates to headcount planning, like I said, be prepared for additional cycles. There's new information every day, and those are the things that we have to look out for when we're planning for our headcount. Remote is an advantage. I would clearly say that I could do a whole nother hour on that piece of it alone, but it is not free from its impact, as I've said a couple times here now. Diversity does not happen by accident. It is purposeful. So when we were thinking about where we put a requisition, we targeted areas of diversity in kind of STEM diversity there. And that allowed us to attract more people into that. And that was initial parts of our plan. Push for a plan, continue to ask the question to get there. On the delivery process, I can't stress this enough. It's about building that measurable process for delivering on these requests and report on it. If I held this report internally, it would be useful for operations, but I wouldn't get all the other benefits of building empathy with other groups, having them understand the pressures that we're being put in, and really the constraints that we have. And opening that report up to more people, it's been highly valuable for us. And then setting expectations, whether you have to reset them or whether you have to just have that conversation about what is backlog management. I think that is an important one for everybody to spend some time in. And then adjusting the workload for accounting for shelter in place. I think a lot of people understand that, but how do they do that? And for us specifically, because we report on it, because we have a sprint process that allows us to have capacity by days, what I'm doing is I'm adjusting the efficiency of the team and how much per day they theoretically really work. If it was 80%, it's now 70% or 60%. And I can adjust those as we continue to see the numbers come in and out. And so that's really what I want us to take away from this presentation, is really that empathy through this transparent communication.